Hi everyone, Justin here. In this video I'm going to be talking about Parasite Eve, a horror action RPG for the PlayStation 1. This video is done in collaboration with Morgan from Morgan Billings Writes. She is a great reviewer of books and she writes, and she's really talented, and she did a great review of the Parasite Eve book that this game was based on. In Parasite Eve, you play as Aya Brea, a rookie cop in New York City. At the start of the game, it's Christmas Eve, and you're on a date at the opera. During one of the songs, people start spontaneously combusting. Fortunately for you, you're left unharmed, along with the singer. Throughout the game, you'll learn a lot about mitochondria, why you were spared from the combustion, and how you're connected to the events of the game. Parasite Eve has pre-rendered backdrops and static camera angles. When you run out of frame, the next backdrop loads and you'll appear in that frame. Movement is based on screen direction, meaning if you press up, you will go up towards the top of the screen. If you press left, you will go towards the left side of the screen. The battle system is real-time with an active time bar, which, when filled, will allow you to take actions. While the active time bar is loading, you can move around and get in position. Once the active time bar is filled, you can execute attacks based on the weapon that you have equipped. Each weapon has a rate of fire, which is how many bullets it fires. The total amount of damage you do is divided among these shots. So if the equipped gun does 100 damage, and you have a rate of fire of 2, each bullet will do 50 damage. Aya also has PE, or Parasite Energy, which is kind of like magic in this game and allows her to do things like heal or execute special attacks. Her PE bar decreases for each spell and increases only during battle. High points. I really enjoyed the battle system for the most part, even though it's really hard to avoid some hits even when they're telegraphed. But other than that, the battle system is really fun. There are a ton of weapons and armor throughout the game, and each one can be customized by taking parameters from other weapons and adding them to whichever weapon you want. The story is really interesting and seems to tie in nicely to the book that it was based on. Lastly, Parasite Eve is really quick to get into the action. There's not a lot of time between starting the game and actually doing stuff. Low points. Even when running, the player moves pretty slowly, slower than the animation shows. This is kind of a minor complaint, but there it is. The collision is kind of funky, and it feels like you'll get stuck on the geometry of the level sometimes, and other times you'll have to be in a perfect position in order to find something on the ground, or open a chest or something. You can't use the analog stick and the D-pad at the same time, which is frustrating because I like to use the D-pad for menus and the analog stick for moving around, and you can't do that unless you switch back and forth between analog and digital on the controller. There are non-pausable, non-skippable cutscenes, which is definitely a product of the times, but something that's not very cool. My biggest complaint about the game is that it is very dark. Not just in tone, which I think is awesome, but in visuals. The visuals are so dark. It was really hard for me to find pretty much anything in the game in certain points. Like there were doors that I didn't even know existed until I came out of them from another angle. So it's pretty frustrating. Final thoughts. Parasite Eve is a great game. A lot of the issues I have with the game are because of the time period in which the game was made. This doesn't excuse any of the problems, but I don't think they're bad enough that you should not want to play this game. In terms of RPGs, Parasite Eve is pretty short, clocking in at about 7.5 hours for the first playthrough, and shorter for playthroughs after that. That said, I thought it was a perfect length for this game. There was a lot of story, and everything felt very scripted, which can be bad in some games, but I thought it was great in this game, where the game kind of knows what level you're going to be at, and poses challenges appropriately. Another thing to note is that Parasite Eve is super linear. The game basically holds your hand from one location to the other. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in this game, but others might not like it. If you don't like grinding, this game may be a good one to check out as well. Because the game is tightly controlled, there's not really much grinding to be had unless you play through it a second time and want to go to the super mega dungeon Chrysler Tower, which is super difficult. I didn't read the book, and Morgan didn't play the game, but we traded notes about the stories and found that there were some really interesting ways that the stories connect. So if you're into reading and you're into video games, this might be a good combination to check out. And that was my review of Parasite Eve. Head on over to Morgan's channel, linked below, to see her review of the book that this game is based on. Thanks for watching. See you next time.